Good morning, everyone. Nice to have everyone here today, and thank you for your time. Today, just a couple of things. My name's Jonathan Crisp. I'm one of the directors of Barn Owl, and every couple of months we invite a guest speaker to speak to us. So we're very honored to have Vilna Meyering chat to us today. Vilna is a risk and corporate security executive. Vilna was at Vodacom heading up the risk and corporate security team for 15 years and has got 30 years experience. We go back a long way, Vilna and myself. Vilna's a CA, chartered accountant. That's no easy feat. A CISA, CIA, certified internal auditor, and got various accolades from IRMSA. So very experienced. Um, Vilna now does consulting to executives and boards on risk management and corporate security. So we're really looking forward to a very enlightened discussion today and presentation. A couple of housekeeping things. One, we will make this presentation available on our website. Two, we are recording the session, so the recording will also be available. And you will also have Vilna's contact details or our contact details if you have any questions that you'd like to ask afterwards or any follow-up. We also will have the chats open on Teams. I don't know if our team will be able to answer any of your questions, but we might. But otherwise, we will open the floor at the end of Vilna's presentation and take questions from the audience. So, yeah, I'm going to hand over to Vilna and just a big thank you, Vilna, for your time today. I know you're hell of a busier than ever. And thanks for everyone who's attending. We appreciate your time as well. Thank you. Vilna's gonna share a presentation now and pop up.
Thank you. Let me just sort out my share and get this going. I never know on which screen it's going to pop up and how it's going to work. So let's check if I can start.
I unplug all my other screens and work on one when I'm on Teams.
I see now this one also do something funny.
We can see it though, Vilna.
Okay, can you just see that, or do you see the scribe at the bottom as well? Just the screen.
Can you just see? No, it is scribing at the bottom. It's basically.
Yeah, that's very funny. I saw it the other day when I tested it, and I don't know how to take that out. Let me try again. Okay, let's do that. Hold on. Let's try and check how I can get out of here.
I don't think it's not the end of the world.
No, it is for anybody. So let's do that.
Vilna, someone on the chat box wrote there, press the CC button, which is the closed captions. I'm not sure where that is.
Okay, maybe, okay, but I pulled out now my other screen, so let's try again. You see, every time we learn something new, because every time things update, CC, we're there. Oh, see, there we learn something.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for that person. Appreciate your. So now I'm on one screen. Thanks for that as well. So I'm going to continue. I can't see any questions, but there will definitely be time afterwards. So I first just want to say thank you to Cheryl and Jonathan to give me this opportunity. I'm not very open to do presentations, but I thought this was a great way to help people. I've done risk management for many years, and we sometimes forget the importance of testing our data with what's out there in the open. We get so bogged down with what's in our risk registers that we actually forget the outset. And then we get sometimes dumbstruck when a board member or especially on the audit committee ask us a question, what about this, Chris? And you said, but Why didn't we thought about that? Why didn't we know about that? And there's so much information these days available that that we need to stay on top. So, and this is where the inside in test started. As you know, I'm no longer in Vodacom, but I am helping from a risk consulting perspective, people to look at their risk registers. And this is one of the biggest advantages that we found that help executives. And sometimes they couldn't believe the information we can deliver to them without even have access to the information. So that is what this is about. What the public information reveals about your risk register. So what are we going to do today? Let's check. Okay, good. It works. So looks a lot. It's not a lot. I need to remind myself to talk slow. Otherwise, I can finish this very quickly. But then there'll be lots of questions. But so we're going to check. So if an outsider can find the gap, will we know about that? Will we know when an audit member will come and tell us about it? Then we look at how we do that. I call it the uncomfortable question. Then we will cover why it works, the method, a little bit of evidence. Please, this is not statistically. This is on the information that I found through the test that I've done. Nothing is statistically, please. It can be different for every organization. And then I'll take you to why we say it's working, an example. But the question is, why does it matter? What additional advantages do we get from that? And then how can you do it yourself? And then, of course, there'll be some time for questions. Okay. So if an outsider can find the gap, will you know? As we know, your risk register is not a private document. Yes, you may think it's a private document because you may not be a listed company. You're a private company, but there's so much information available on the internet and in so many different areas that people from the outside, and there's specifically 3 groups that we will look at, or 4 groups that I'll look at, that actually do this on a regular basis. You may just not know about it. So we know investors and analysts, they model your risk even before they price you, especially if you're on a listed company. Before they invest, they do their own evaluation. There's people that specialize in this, that a lot of money get paid to just analyze companies. And it's not always just, as I said, listed. It can be private, somebody that wants to invest in you from a business. It's not necessarily shares. So that is one area that people already is doing it. The second one is regulators. They will test, are you disclosing against what's in the public domain? You say you do all this ethical stuff, but you're constantly in the news about ethical breaches or whistleblowing issues or whatever. So they use the information out there. Then you get your activists or the short sellers. Those are the people that really want to make money from you. They hunt for those gaps that you left open. And do you know what are those gaps? Have you thought about what the people from the outside think about your company? Think about your risk register. And then acquirers. They are people that, as I said, they want to buy into your business, running due diligence from the outside first. And then you can't understand why they're not interested, because their view versus your risk register might be totally different thing. And that's what we need. What this is about is, what does people that don't have your hat on think about your company and specifically your risk register? Okay, so now the uncomfortable question. If a competent outsider built a risk register on your organization, would it match your risk register? Or would it find something you've missed or under-disclosed? That's a big question. And if you look at all those 4 people that we talked of, groups that we talked about earlier, if they have a view of your company and you finally show them your risk register and it's different, what would they think about you? What would they thought about your risk management practices? So that is the outside-in test. And today I'll show you how to run it on your company. First, so that nobody else will do it for you. And if you're sitting on here and you're a consultant for companies, so that you can run it on that company and actually take it to them and say, this is why you need risk management. Look how different this may be. Have you thought about these things? So it's not just from an internal company, but also from a consultant. So if I talk about running on your company, it can also be when you're a consultant for a company. Okay, so let's look at what we need to do. So first, we call it the anchoring trap. So what's happening? It's, those blind spots. I know what you know and what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know, you need to know. So the problem is when you in your company, or when you are so used to doing a risk assessment within a company, you inherit its blind spots. If nobody in that company, no executive, nobody sees the risk, you validate what they're already telling you and not what's missing. Because we are so focused on what we think we know about a company that we actually get stuck. And management framing becomes your framing. And that is the anchoring trap. And that's sometimes where it's difficult for us. I mean, with me, that's been in the telecoms industry for too long before I got out. That was definitely a problem. And I think if I could have done this when I was there, I would have probably raised a lot more emerging risks and potential gaps, because you become that company. You think you know everything. So what are the discipline we need? We need to build an independent external view first. And that's what we suggest, that you use only public sources. What are the people out there telling us of our company before we lock that in, before we then look at our internal documents? And then only do we do a reconciliation. And then you determine, were I right? Were I wrong? Were I blind spots? And it's also, for me, after I've looked at all of this, it helps us to say, but do my risk management work? Because when we reconcile and there's limited areas that's different, then we know, okay, our risk management's actually working. So it's actually like a test as well. You'll see at the bottom, I have added the ISO 31000 and 2018 references. I'm not going to talk about it, but I know a lot of people follow ISO 31000, so I've added the references for you. I'm not an expert in ISO 31000, although I do believe in it, but I did add it for you. So that's the discipline. So let's look at the method. So it's very easy, actually, and you'll think afterwards, but why haven't done this? But sometimes we do it by accident and never thought about it. So first, we do an external scan. We know this. We've learned it. We've read about it. We've done in strategic sessions, strategic training, that PESTEL, the SWOT, the Porter's 5 forces. There's a lot others. You go and run it on your public sources only. The problem is we don't do it. I know when we do risk management training and you go for, they call it the environmental scan that you need to do on a regular basis. But it takes time, and you do it when you study, but then afterwards we don't really actually go and do an environmental scan. We don't really sit and do a proper PESTEL. We do a proper SWOT, a proper force 5, and not with the content that you've got inside, from the outside. So you create that, you do all this public sources. From that, you go and determine, if you were an external person, what would be my independent top 10, 15. It depends on big. There's no right or wrong. I wouldn't do too small, maybe even go higher. What would you have thought would have been the strategic and key risk? And we'll talk later about, remember, you still have got your company hat on how to overcome that. But that will address a bit later. So that's the first thing we need to do. You need to look at your company from the outside in. Create that view. What if a consultant come to you? What would they find? And then from that view, you determine what would have been the gaps. So with the information, still, you don't touch your internal documents. Remember, you You look then, said, what's likely missing? What may be emerging? What else am I finding that I haven't thought about? That's your potential gaps. It's not facts yet. Remember, you have not tested it. So it's very important that you actually complete 1 and 2 and have a discussion on what was found from the outside before you actually look at the internal documents. Because the moment we look at our internal documents, we are pulled back into the potential. Remember that that framing of management, that knowledge that we have of our company, and we may again put our blinkers on and miss facts. And once this is done, only then do we actually reconcile. So now you open your internal documents and you say, where were I right? Where were I wrong? What if we totally missed? Or what may be emerging? So remember, it's not always just totally missed. It's sometimes a different view of looking at things. We may think this is how the people perceived it, and the outside world see it totally different. That's an indication of how complete or incomplete our internal strategic risk registers are. I'm not talking about process risks or operational risk registers. Remember, that are the things that's very detailed and specifically for a process. We're now looking here at strategic risks of a company, not the detailed. Please remember that. So how accurate is an outside-in view? So it differs from company to company, but in most cases that we found is that about 70% of the information that was done outside were already managed internally. So that's a good thing. So that helps us to say that we've identified all these risks from the outside, but that 70% is actually already done. So if you look at, say, you've identified 10 risks, 7 of them is already managed by the company. This was done on a JSE listed company that we've done. So there were a lot of information available, and we really ran it. We had no knowledge about, I had no knowledge about this company. It was in the mining industry, and on the stats that I showed you, and we had no view of the internal documents because it was not publicly available. So everything that was done was run from the outside, and 70% of the information that we determined, I think we ultimately had 15 strategic risks that we've identified, were ultimately 70% of them were actually already captured internally. So that was a good thing. But then there's 30% that were genuine blind spots. Or the view was different. They'd never thought about it that way. And we'll come back to the example where we may have a lot of risks, but because it's scattered and somewhere in different documents, we sometimes miss it. So the 30% is where you can now really add value to your audit committee, to your exco, where you can tell them, listen, these are the 30% that we either need to rewrite because the people don't understand it, or it's been missed, or it's really blind spots, or we never thought about that. And it can also be emerging risks. So, and we all need to do emerging risks, and it's very difficult to run emerging risks. So what does this actually tell us? The outside-in view is a reliable blind spot detector. But as we said, it may flag too much, but it's a predictable. We know it's not all this information is not suddenly this 15 risks we've identified, there's suddenly new risks. So now we know we can already take away many of them, and then you can know which ones you need to handle. So it's predictable. The predictability is what makes this tool you can trust. So now you can spot what you're missing. You now have focused the surface risks that aren't on your register, the blind spot your own team can't see from the inside the organization. As I said, it's such add value. And you can move faster because now you have more information available to the executive team. You don't have a board member that come and say, but what about this? I mean, if any of you have sat in audit committee meeting with a board member asking you a risk and you thought, yo, I didn't know about that. It is really, really helps you to identify those gaps and emerging risks far quicker than waiting for it to appear from the outside, somebody telling you the inside. So let's look at an example. From the outside. So in this example that I'll be using, so outside, we could see there was public financial showed operating cash were under pressure. And the strategy talked about diversifying away from the core. So they wanted to expand away from what they are currently doing. But in this case, they emphasize the expansion could drain cash or probably not deliver. So they were underemphasizing the execution risk on the diversification bet. So that's what the public not, and this is facts, that's what the public information told us, not what was internally anyway. Internal documents, the register had a capex underspent on the diversification. The operational key risks carried a mergers and acquisition growth target, and an internal audit flagged subsidiary governance weaknesses. Individually, each looked like a minor item, but it didn't really tell us that there was a major potential problem that was from the outside. There was no single document showed it, but put the pieces together, it appeared only at the intersection of these four documents that cash were really under pressure and that they were actually underspending on the expansion. So their target of expansion was not possible. And through all of that, it became clear that because of the cash were under pressure, there was weaknesses at the companies that they were managing. And a real risk emerges that they may need to look at where they want to focus. They were focusing on too many things because operating cash were getting smaller, but they wanted to expand. But before they could do that, they first had to fix what was internal. So it became real. It really changed their strategy. They actually had to go back and said, okay, all of these things don't work together. On the trajectory, we will not make our targets, our strategy. So we will need to either stop our expansion and first fix our cash reserves, or they need to sell some of their businesses before they can continue and expand in another area. So they actually raised that risk, and I'm not potentially going to name what they call their risk, because if you go in the next, what we call it, the next integrated report, it will probably be there. And they actually did change, they actually increased their strategic risk from 12 to 15. And they added 2 risks to specifically handle these things that our review showed. And with all their documents, they were so bogged down, they never actually sit and discovered that this was all working together and that their strategy and their risks and what was outside were not talking to each other. So it's not that it was a total brand new risk. So remember, that's not always it. It was that they were not, the risk that they captured, we're not talking about the real risk that this company was facing. And that is what is the power of giving them outside information that they didn't know about or thought about, that the view from the outside was different from the view from the inside. And this is that where it is very powerful to look at it like that. So just on another thing, as we all know, one added value that this is, what this can add is it is now you have proof of risk oversight for King 4. As we remember, Of hopefully all of you know about King 4. Ach, what am I thinking 4? Sorry guys, King 5. The V and the... So King 5 raised the bar. We all know it was launched on the 12th of the 1st of January. Not launched, it was applicable from the 1st of January 2026. And it states that the governing body must now have risk process, and it should show the process that it works. So how do we show that the things are work? So the first one, you have now an independent challenge. You have an outside-in scan of all the information, the evidence of the governing body that tested management's view. Apologies, I accidentally pressed and it was on my view. So sorry. So let's just start again. So we've got your proof is you're independently challenged. You have an outside-in scan to show that you have some sort of independent view of your risk management. Your effectiveness of your risk management, because now your risk register and what's happening outside is working together. There's your proof of that it's effective. And then last, your blind spot assurance, your documented proof that the register was stress tested against an external view, not marked by the author. And it doesn't mean you need a consultant. Of course, as a consultant, we'll always help you with this, but you can also do it yourself. And that's what we'll talk next. So how to run the test on yourself. So the most important thing is assign it to somebody that's not part of your strategic risk register. If you just have a new employee started, that's even the best. If you have somebody that want experience, there's always people that want to rotate into a division, want to learn about it, somebody in compliance, you give it to them. You give it to somebody that has not access to your register or don't live your register, because that's the most important. And you go and tell them, only look at public sources and run. That independence is the whole point. Go and run that PESTEL, SWAT, what's it, Porter's 5 forces, go and run that. And you now think, and it does take time, but that is where, AI can help. And there's lots of things that AI can help you do that and create that. If you want to know more about that, it's a total whole topic on its own. We can discuss that. But don't sit there. I can remember when I did my master's many years ago at the University of Northwest. Very good master's in risk management, if anybody's interested. We had to do an environmental scan, and I sat after hours for days and days looking at all the articles, everything. Because then there was no thing like a chat or a Claude that can go and gather some information for us. We had to do it, and it takes time, but it was worth doing it manually the first time. Now I'm too lazy. That's why I'm using AI. But give this person the tools to be able to go and do that, and let them run it and get that. And then you from that, you identified, you determine from that person, give me the top of 15 strategic risk you think from the outside view, the independent view, and you lock that and you say, okay, this is my top 15 that came from the external view. And then only do you reconcile honestly. Remember those 3 buckets? Now you go and check, say, where did it match? Where did my register match the outside view? Where did it genuinely didn't match? Were there potential gaps? What have we totally missed? It's actually more than 3 buckets. Or like the example that I showed you, is sometimes we have it all over the place, but together, the outside view already showed it together that it may be a bigger difference, but in our risk register, it may be at a few places. But what's nice, we know most of the gaps will disappear. Hopefully. If you've got the other way around, like 30% is on your risk register and 70% outside, that's another thing that you then need to know, that you need to go and rethink how you do your risk management, because then it's definitely not working, and somewhere there's a disconnect. Hopefully not by all your management is but potentially that's another risk, that your management is living in a bubble, and that's something you can also raise to Exco, and that's where you as risk management can really add value. Identify these things and raise it before it's being raised by executives or external people. And then you bank the new findings. The blind spots are your prizes or your new emerging risks. You can even create the emerging risk register from there. But this is where the power sits. That's now what you can take to the board and to the Exco and tell them it's been stress tested. And here are the things. And sometimes what we did is we actually took those things directly to the Exco and said, this is what we found. And they had to go and think. And with some of them, they challenged us. And then the others, they were saying, wow, okay. As I said, that one, they really was really a blind spot for them, as they didn't really thought that the external information really picked that up so bad in the information that was out there. And then, of course, you keep the record. You have now your reconciliation is your King 5 evidence, and you file it. And it's going to become more and more important for us to prove our worth and to King 4, because we need to show now how we're doing. It's not that that easy to just run around and say we've done it. They will want to keep the proof. And that is how you run it yourself. Test it. Test it yourself. Go and play a little bit about it. You will be surprised about the information that's available out there. So the question to leave you with, and I see I am a bit early, but I did warn you guys up front. I don't do long presentations. If someone built your register from the outside, would it match the one you have inside? And have you ever thought about that? This company was, every company that we've done this with, were quite surprised on how much information we could gather outside and actually create their risk register for. Luckily, most of them was there, but I don't think we remember these things, and I think we forget how important is it just to look what's out there. Cheryl and does a weekly gathering of all the GRC information that's available out there, and then every month I gather them and I review what's changing, and it's quite shocking in a month how much things are changing just on a GRC level. And just think then, if you've done this, never done this, how much of actually the view of the outside of your company, because things change constantly, and you've got good and bad people out there, and they are willing to risk capturing that, and then just when they want to hurt you, they've got all the information to say, but why haven't you thought about this? Look at what's outside. Look, and social media tells us a lot what's going on in companies. So may you take this challenge and go back and immediately at least go and do a basic view of your company. At least that you can tick that box. Now I'm open for, let me check if I can stop this presentation. There we go. Now I just need to unshare. There we go.
Yeah,
Jonathan,
thanks.
questions?
Yeah, thank you, Vilna. That was very enlightening. I mean, we're busy integrating AI into Barnall now, where you can actually ask, from the system, what are the gaps? Where am I missing risks? And then we're working on the augmentation, where you could actually pull those risks and those controls directly into the system if you've got the right permissions. But then we're also seeing the AI from querying a a trusted source like the database, those insights are incredible. As you showed, it's not always just that you're missing a risk. It's the interconnectedness of the risks that are very important. And if you've got a system, for example, where you have connected those things up properly, then you can draw amazing insights with ChatGPT and Claude, directly from the database. So, that is really exciting. The kind of insights that you can get are, we've got all the fancy Power BI reports and all that kind of stuff, but it's really hard to know how to navigate those, and it doesn't always show you a multi-dimensional view where ChatGPT on your data, and especially if you've, as you say, you've done the right risk scanning and you've plugged the gaps. It really, GRC is now, I think, going to become a really valuable discipline and tool. So, thanks. That kind of goes hand in hand with the whole sort of AI integration.
I think if this company don't have a proper risk management system, I think if they had that and they had that interconnectivity would have come out. Now we had to show it from the outside in. So luckily we done it, but they had it somewhere, but they're all over the place. And that's the problem. It also maybe shows you why it's so important to run, because they didn't have a proper risk management system. It was all over the place.
Yeah,
when we got the internal documents, it was an Excel spreadsheet with 20 sheets.
Exactly, all spread. I got to have these things. People think that I need a system for this because it's just a nice to have, but to have your data all over the show and not structured, and because AI, doesn't matter how clever AI is, it still needs structured data. It needs decent data. It needs decent prompts. It's got its hallucinations and biases. So anyway, enough from me. Let's open the floor to I'm not going to try and say
Cheryl's name was first.
Cheryl, go for it, Cheryl.
There were two questions in the chat box. Ken asked how does one actually conduct the scrutiny from the outside?
So what we've done is I used Claude. I've created, so I've taught Claude about SWOT. So he did a SWOT for me. So I gathered that. And so through prompting, I got him to complete the specific information for me. And then I had everything together. And then I said, okay, from that, and then I pulled in the integrated report and said, this is what the company, because remember, you also need to understand what the company does. And that's where you think Claude could do everything for you, but you need to help Claude understand this company. So I taught Claude what was the company about. So I taught, it was making holes in the ground. So I gave him the integrated report and tell him this is the purpose. Yes, according to their integrated report, this is what they do. So now with all the information you gathered, what do you think are they missing? What are the big, and I told him what I believe is a risk and everything. So from that, he then gave me a list. And that's then where we start playing with it. Not playing, playing is the wrong word, but that's now when you said, okay, what are the ones that's you think is to the company? And that's how we got to, so you can do it manually, but I can promise you, it's going to take you a month to do it manually. But it does take about 2 days in Claude, because you need to train him and tell him what to do. But it's, I hope it answers your questions, but that's how I did step by step. So you didn't go into AI and said, okay, go and tell me what's the top 10 risk for the company. You can do that, but it's going to tell you what's in the integrated report. And that's not what you want.
And then we've got a second question. Very often there are misinformation about your company without evidence. How does one respond in this situation?
It's not a question of misinformation. So how, if you tell the system, it will tell you. So it won't tell you this is the information. It will tell you there's a lot of information in social media, your branding. So it will bring back to branding. So it's not about the content of the information. Is if you teach your system correctly, it will tell you there's a lot of negative publicity in the company. So it won't, remember, it's not tested. So you will pick that up and said, okay, but we'll put that in a bucket of, they may not do their branding properly. Are they monitoring social media? Because if it comes up, that means that's not properly managed. So it's just remember, this is now a flag that's coming up that you need to raise internally, and then the people will internally tell you, no, don't worry, we're managing, here's our brand. Then you said, fine. Remember, it's not for you to make a decision, it should be a risk. It's for you to raise the potential risk to management. And you don't need to test everything, if it's true facts or not. Remember that. That first section is not based on facts. It's based on what's outside in the media or wherever. I hope that answered the question. Mzi.
Mzi, I think just unmute. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Good day, colleagues, and good morning, Ma'am Maring and Sir Crispo. Ma'am, I just want to ascertain one thing, ma'am. How aligned your presentation is to the public and provincial sector? I see it's mainly based on the private sector risk management processes, because for me, I'm from the provincial legislature sector, and I know our risk management processes will differ from the private sector processes. Thank you.
So you can actually just take ISO out. It's got nothing to do with ISO or King. It is how you can test it. So it doesn't really matter how you do your risk management. This process is go and check what is said. Say, for example, you from a Bloemfontein municipality. Go and do, you can go and still do what's out in the public around Bloemfontein municipality, about municipalities. So you can go and do a proper search on municipalities in South Africa, what's out there. Yes, there will be less information available, but you can now pull in, if you use artificial intelligence, you can pull in the Municipality Act, you can pull in a lot of data that's available. You can give him, you can tell him, look only at government sites and tell me what are the key risks in general for a municipality. So you can make it a little bit more general, not for in your case, say, if we take Bloemfontein, so first you'll do it for a municipality. Go and get it to do a risk assessment for a municipalities in South Africa. Then you bring in Free State. As I said, Bloemfontein. Then you look at what is happening in the Free State. What is happening, then you can pull in weather. I mean, look at our weather. Now you can pull in weather, because now there's looking like a drought coming. Bloemfontein is heavily water resistant. So now I've already identified a lot of things that you can pull in and say, but have the municipality thought about that when they do their risk assessment? So although mine was on a public entity, you need to be creative and on what you can do for your business. So it's not public, private, it can go for anyone. So don't because you're a public entity, let that take off your blinders and go and think. Yes, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think it actually applies to, as you say, private and public sector, because perception is reality. So that's one of my favorite sayings, is that you did mention misinformation, or someone did, but there might be misinformation around, but the perception of the public, for example, becomes their reality, and it can be a negative spiral. And reputational risk is one of the biggest risks and the worst risks. And I mean, as we know, we really are under the whip with a lot of municipalities. I'm just using that as an example, but to know what is happening outside, or what the perceptions are, is very important, because it gives you an opportunity to actually counteract that. So I think probably even more, this outside in scan is even more important for the public sector than what it is even for private sector, or equally important. So Mzi, I'm not I think that might answer your question, but obviously public sector's focused on service delivery and things like that, and not profit. But not that that's all that companies do. They've got the integrated reporting and the triple bottom line, but public sector are driven by different objectives. So, but they are there to do service delivery, and they are there to serve the public, and they're there to, and the perceptions and reality need to be taken into account with and the effect of reputational damage. So yeah, thanks for the question, Mzi. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Makes me excited. I just think of all the information you can gather now.
Yeah. Alarata?
Good morning, colleagues. I hope you're well. Nice to see you, Jonathan. It's been a while.
Yeah, hi.
So, and thank you so much for the presentation, Verna. Very enlightening, much appreciated. I just want to, I think the first part maybe is just my observation, and maybe you can comment just to see if I'm aligned or not. But I would think that the external scan, the outside view, if we identify risks and so on, and when you reconcile, you find that there are big gaps. I take it then it means introspection. You need to look where you're not necessarily having a comprehensive process to identify your own risks and so on. And basically where you need to improve. But as you say, issues of accuracy, issues of background information become important. And that then leads me to the question that I want to ask you is, when you have done all of that, and I was quite interested your first point there around provocation, as well as the issue around accuracy, is to say when the scan has happened and the recon has happened and so on, and you do find that there are glaring gaps and so on, but coming in within your own environment, and you know that your own environment, in terms of how well they embrace risk management and the value that it brings, and you know that we are not quite there yet, and culture is not necessarily even supporting you, when it comes to issues of integrity and transparency. How then can we use this to change that narrative around our own internal risk management processes?
Yeah, that's not an easy answer, but I think it's the way you're gonna present it. So it is one of the ways that you're gonna use to show them what are missing. And there, I think you need to maybe then look further to say, but what are the consequences if we don't look at this? If we miss these risks, what are the consequences? But I don't think you will come in and say, okay, our risk management's not working. This will be another step within your risk management to say, let's do this because my bottom-up process or top-down process is not working. So let's add a step. And then through that is go, maybe instead of sharing this with the board, is take each of those risks to the specific risk owner that will potentially be, and actually sell it to them. So be more like a marketing and sell it to them, make it their own, because if they, a lot of times, if they can believe that it's actually something they thought up, they'll promote it. So there's different ways of doing it. Jonathan, I don't know if you have an option, because but I think it's just the way you're going to sell it to them, is you'll find a different way. And by doing that, helping them, you will slowly increase the risk maturity.
Yeah, I think one thing is a risk maturity. I agree with what you're saying, Bill. No, you got to get the buy-in, but it's still, there's a lot of it does start also for the tone at the top.
Yeah.
Ethical leadership, And I think that's where it must be very difficult in some organizations where you can almost see what the right thing to do is. You've got all the information, it's available. You've even got action plans trying to push people to do the right thing to mitigate, because obviously a system can tell you, you know, where the problems are, but at the end of the day, you got people need to do the judgment, and they need to do the action. So Malarata's question is a very, especially in our environment, where, you know, we even come across that sometimes people don't really want systems because they're going to find, you know, where the gaps are and where some of the problems are. So it's easier just to, you know, cover those up. And sometimes it's actually, there are certain places that would probably want to cover some of these things up. So I know it's quite contentious, but I don't really know what the answer is with the integrity and the tone from the top. I suppose it's consequence management. Eventually, there will be consequences, and I think the more that in our country, the more that that consequences start actually taking effect, then people are going to take risk management and take what risk professionals and are doing more seriously. So because there are going to be consequences. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah, and I think also remember, you cannot force them to put any risk on their risk register as long as you've raised it. And back to that proof for King, you need your own proof. I've identified this, here it is. It's still up to management to decide. If you agree or not agree, even if you believe it's a massive risk, you've raised it and you note it and you make a note about that. Because one day something's going to happen and then they're going to come back and say, Malaratu, why was this never a risk? And you said, and I must be honest, we had that long ago in Vodacom, where ultimately it became a risk. And we said, but guys, here you said it's not going to be an issue. Here's your reasons. And then they said, okay, yeah, no, but it was probably, we were not mature, but that was long ago. And that helped build the process. And not say, and that's also, you need to make sure that you've raised it. Don't hide it. Raised it. And they say, it's not an issue. Then you say, fine. And you have your proof. But that's how you slowly build that.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? See, we've still got a good turnout today, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thanks, Vilna. So
yeah,
there was one other question. I see you were talking about Claude and training Claude, and I didn't think it was possible to train a male, you know, train
you will
a man.
be surprised. No, I've got Claude the other day. I was very angry and I wrote an email and Claude told me, this is not how you are talking. I suggest. He said, and I even told him, I said, I disagree with you. And he said, I know you disagree with me, but there's a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's really worth it. Investing in Claude with projects, it's really worth it. And you do train. You can probably call it Claudinia if you think it's called trainer easier. But yeah, I've trained Claude. People laugh at me. But yeah. And remember, you just don't, there's many tools.
Yeah.
Each one a little bit for itself. Claude in general is the best. And then I still use with chat for other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, what we're seeing now, I mean, it's just, it really is exciting because to be able now to, I mean, I've got, it running here in our online solution where we can actually, query a database. I mean, we actually, I see Vanessa couldn't make it, but we've actually populated the IRMSA 2026-2027 report into Barnal, for example, and that's going to, and the insights that you can get from that, if you connect up all the risks correctly, and then use AI like ChatGPT that's integrated with Barnal for queries and in interrogation is really powerful. And then you've got the external side as well. Yeah, very good.
Coming back to that question about the municipalities, I mean, if you have a lot of information around public sectors, I mean, without sharing any content, you can actually build a risk register or a risk library for for an entity, for a public sector, for
Yeah.
a mining company, for that, and then
Yeah.
actually starts helping them to
No,
say this
quite
is
right. No,
internally,
it's
and then you can add it with the external ones, and then you've already so much further than you would have been.
yeah.
One thing we've learned is if you start with an empty page to management, you get 2 lines. If you give them a full page of content that they can play with, they're already. So the more information you can have up front, the better, and use AI for that.
No, I think AI has become a huge enabler,
Yeah.
and obviously you need to verify it, make sure it has got biases. It starts
Yes.
telling you what you want to hear,
No.
hallucinations,
And the
those
black,
kind of
I
things.
call it going down the rabbit hole. Oh,
Yeah.
when it asks you
Yeah.
question on question, out, don't stop. Be careful for the rabbit hole and the hallucinations.
But it's really, really useful, and this outside-in test is great, and then the kind of insights now that we as risk practitioners and with the right, that you can query a database and get really very, very valuable insights out of the system. And I think that's possibly what's going to transform this GRC into a really valuable management tool. It's always been, sometimes it's hard being in our industry because we're nice to have, we kind of seen as tick the box compliance. These are real insights now that you can query a database, for example, and get out very, very, very good insights. And if the data is good, which it will be better and better now with what in line with what you've been saying as well, the outside in. So you really got a full comprehensive system, and you can analyze that and give really good management insights. Yeah, very excited. Very exciting.
Yes.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Don't think so. So we will put the presentation on our website. I think Cheryl will send an email out to everyone that registered, and the recording will also be up in a few days' time. So, but thank you very much to everyone for your time today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Wilna. Thank you. It was
Bye-bye.
wonderful. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Bye.